Let's talk about blending and stamping, which tools to use and when. I used to struggle with blending a lot. I know how annoying it is, but after a masterclass I took in Toronto, I got a better understanding of it, and I want to share it with you because, again, I know how annoying it is to not blend the way you want it to blend. So we're gonna talk about brushes, stamps, and rougher brushes, which shape of the brush you should use, stuff like that. So let me zoom in to show you exactly how it works. So before we'll get to the process of blending, let's figure out why do we need to blend or stamp. Imagine this is your paper from a side view, right? It's a slice of paper. The texture of the drawing paper is uneven and you have all these peaks, right? If it's a cold pressed paper, you get higher peaks. If it's a hot pressed paper, the peaks are shorter. So when you apply graphite to the page, to the paper, it catches the highest peaks of that part, and all these empty spaces are glowing through your tone. So you want them to disappear, and ideally what you want to do is to take a sharp pencil with a very fine point and get in between these grooves and feel them, right? So the area you work on has nice and even tone. However, it is really hard to do on such a small scale. So sometimes you miss and you overlay the existing graphite, right? And you get more and more graphite, and it begins to polish itself and reflect the light, so we get that glow, famous glare of graphite. So you don't want that. In order to get a deeper value, darker tone, more volumetric sense of subject, you want those darker shadows present, right? So you need more graphite in the space, in the area, without getting it too shiny. So in order to do that, you need to push the graphite in between these grooves. So I picked a charcoal paper because it has this velvet texture to it. It demonstrates my point clearly. So this is 4B pencil, so you get all this texture visible, right? But you want an even tone, so enter stamp, and you push it in. You push the graphite in, and this is what happens when you stamp along the texture of the paper, and this is what's going on when you stamp across perpendicularly to the texture of the paper. These guys are for pushing the graphite or charcoal, especially charcoal, into the paper. And look, this is 4B, it's pretty dark, no glare. This looks a little bit too smudgy, it's a little bit too vague. So you want to go ahead and put another layer of graphite over it to restore the texture, because you want some of the texture present, right? It gets darker and darker every time you apply more graphite, so you need to calculate how many passes you can do before it gets over darkened. Now let's apply 4B pencil on this side and HB pencil on this side, and let's smudge it. As you can see now, it's the same value, so the plane difference disappeared. There's no volume anymore. So what if I want to keep this difference between these two values? The answer is already in the frame. It's a brush, so you gently go over and you dust off the graphite. Now you can still see this gap here, and again you take a pencil and you go over the same area again, restoring the crispness of the texture. And if I wish to, I can take a smaller stump and push it in again. Now it's even darker, and with a pencil I restore this sharp edge and say I'll erase this. I'll add a few lines here and there, and we have a box. Now let's try a form that's round. So let's say I want to add a mid value here. So I take my HB pencil and I put a few passes. Let's divide this thing in half. Again, I want to even out this mid-tone here, so what I'm gonna do is apply a stamp on this side, and I'm gonna apply a brush on this side. Same stuff everywhere, same pencil, same paper, same hand, and you can clearly see the difference between these two, right? So the lesson here is do not use these for anything outside of your shadow, okay? These are to push in the graphite to even out your shadows. For fast sketches, you can do whatever you want. That's your style, that's your expressiveness, go ahead. But for something more controlled and longer, time-wise, I mean, you want to go carefully and soft. And so let's say I want to add a better transition. So I'll merge those with a little strip of mid-tone again. Like this. It's already blending, as you can see, but I want it to be nice and smooth. Again, a stump. I'll even use a cleaner side. And now let's use a brush. Already you can see the difference, that this looks like a Tic Tac candy almost, and this is completely flat. So I added a highlight, and I can cheat a little bit and use a brush on this edge. You can blend the highlight, and then you can take the best drawing thing in the world, which is kneaded eraser, and carefully take out these overlapping parts here that are creating those darker spots. And now I can restore this edge of the shadow. Rendering is constant back and forth. I try to never extend 3 or even 2 passes with a stump. One thing I haven't mentioned is using your fingers as stump, but they're pretty much the same, except you have less control with them, and it can look cool when you do those expressive charcoal drawings. So, but overall you want more control, so stick to the stump. And another thing is harder brush, or brush with hard bristles, rough bristles. So hard bristles have less flexibility, so they are not as good when it comes to getting between those grooves of the paper. So it's actually a great advantage when you need just a little bit of smudging, right? So one long patch of graphite, and I'll use hard bristles here. These velvet stripes are still present, and these are almost gone. Well, not entirely, but you get the point. Okay, so now that we went through the process, let's talk about tools themselves, because now you'll have more understanding why. For the brush, you want a nice synthetic brush, right? Slightly of a higher quality, low to mid price range. The cheap ones, they're still a bit too hard, right? You want softer touch, and you want to pick a filbert shaped brush. It looks like this. So it looks like a flat brush in the base, but then corners are rounded. And this allows you to work with this round edge. You want your round edge to touch the paper and it won't leave any marks. Pointy brush, the round brush, will leave some stripes, and square or flat brush will leave even more marks. So don't use those, use filbert brushes. Well, I have only two brushes. I have small and larger one. So this is size 10 and this one is size 4. And for harder bristle brush, get wherever you can. Different bristles will act differently on different paper, so just you have to experiment and find what works for you. So these guys, stumps. First of all, never try to sharpen them, please. I've tried, I failed. If you will be successful at it, great, but usually they won't sharpen or clean well, even with fine grade sandpaper. Just get two. You have two stumps, you have 4 tips. You can mark each one like 4B, 2B, or whatever, and you have stump for each grade of graphite. They vary in sizes and diameters, so yeah, you want to have a few, at least 2. Small one and large one, for obviously for larger areas and smaller areas. I would recommend, unless you're already familiar with the brand, try them out in the store. Just hold them in your hand and see if this texture is fine, because sometimes the paper is too coarse and you get that uneven texture of the stump, which creates those lumps here, and it smudges even more unevenly than it does already. So yeah, now you know the difference between stamping and blending, and you can use this knowledge and experiment with it and maybe create some cool effects by combining two or wherever. And yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next lesson.